In these perilous times, see from current events how biblical prophecy is coming to pass in front of our eyes. You're watching In the Last Days, the program that looks at Israel and the end times with teaching from a Hebraic perspective. With Martin and Natalie Blackham, thank you to our friends and partners who make this program possible. Now, here's Martin and Natalie.
Shalom, dear friends. Wonderful to be with you again today. My name is Natalie Blackham. This is In the Last Days TV program. They are made from Israel because we want to show you what's happening in this land, this beautiful land, land of milk and honey, but also life of struggle, and also life. You live a full life in Israel. When you get up in the morning, you never know what will happen, and good things, bad things, but it's what makes us. And we've been living now more than 6 years here. And I tell you, I'm a better person than I was before because I've learned through life here. And I've learned through a lot of people. And today we have Sherri Mandell. She had Mandell, yes. Mandell, sorry. I don't know why I want Mandell, sorry. Sherri Mandell. And again, she lived through trauma. She's coming as a victor and a bearer of light, I tell you. And we will speak a bit more today about her book, which is called The Road to Resilience. It's an amazing book. You can find it on Amazon UK or Amazon. And it's a short book full of teaching, full of keys to know how to live life, even if you have chaos from the beginning. And it's called Chaos to Celebration. And we started last week and we spoke about things and we said, no, there is too much things to say. We need to carry on. So we're carrying on today. Sherri, again, thank you for coming.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Thank you for being this bearer of light. And it's beautiful. And we want to carry on speaking more about the beauty of what you put in this book. Maybe give just a tiny bit of what happened in your life because people might not have seen the first program, and we will carry on from there.
So we moved to Israel in 1996, and 5 years later, my oldest son, Kobe, he was 13 then, he'd be turning 29 now. He was murdered in a terrorist attack. He left home in the morning, he cut school with his friend, Yosef Ishran, who was also killed that day. And they went hiking, and they were beaten to death. And they didn't find the bodies till the next day. Mm-hmm. They were in a cave, and there was blood smeared all over the walls of the cave.
So from chaos, so it's like 16 years already?
15.
15.
Almost 15. Yeah, it'll be 15 in May.
But you've done a lot of things. I like the name Tikkun Olam that you have in Hebrew, which is like you can repair things, even if it's broken. Oh, you speak about it in your book too.
Yeah, fixing the world, healing the world.
Yes. And like you speak about the Japanese, when something is broken, they can try to put them together. And sometimes it's stronger when it's broken.
Yeah, well, they have a technique, and they put gold. Mm-hmm. They put the pieces back together to a vase, then they put gold over it it's like a glue-like substance, and people say it's even more beautiful. Mm-hmm. So you can't ever put the pieces back the way they were, but you can find new meaning and a new life and an expanded life because you have connections with people and things and ideas and places you never would have because you're forced out of your little world, basically. And if you stay in that little world, you won't survive.
It's like push and it's like...
Yeah, it's like a kick.
Yeah.
Like you're constantly being kicked.
But this is because God loves us, which is seems a bit strange to say that. But you say, like you were speaking also in the book, about the kindness of God and the community. Can you speak a bit about that?
Yeah, I think that there's a certain protection also given at the same time that there's this terrible trauma and tragedy and sadness. There's some way that people are holding you up, or Hashem, God, is holding you up at the same time. Yeah, but it's, for me personally, I saw God a little bit later. At first, it was people who saved my family, I think, because they came so close and they took care of us. And it was through their kindness that, in a way, I feel like God sent us kindness through these people who nurtured us. And then afterwards, that first year, I felt like God kept sending me messages, coded messages, like I was like a spiritual detective. And I felt connected to God. But through the whole process, and it's a grief like ours continues forever. There's always moments where it's like, wow, this is from beyond.
So we were speaking a bit like sometimes we spoke before the program about Europe, about even America. I mean, around the world, there is these things who are so painful. But we want Sherri speak about give a lot of keys in this book, and it's because of that we want, again, Road to Resilience. We want to really encourage you to buy this book and to, it's like almost a study books with the Bible, and giving you keys how to be resilient, how to go through pain and be transformed. You are speaking about community. You are speaking about choice also.
Right. That one of the keys of the Bible is that God gives us choice. The first thing that God says to Adam and Eve is to make this choice. Like, I'm going to prohibit this. You're not allowed to eat from this tree, but it's up to you. You have choice. And that's a given in our world, that we have choice. And we have a choice whether or not to believe in God. I mean, they say everything is in the hands of God except for fear of God, because that's what we get to decide. But all along the way, I feel like there's a script, but we don't know exactly where it's heading. But we're always making choices. And I hate this idea with Palestinian terror. A lot of the media will say, oh, well, they're victims. Even a victim has a choice, and they have a choice. Lots of times they say, oh, the terrorists, they're in despair, so they murder. Well, you have other choices. Yes. You could try to build your community instead of destroying the Jewish people.
And very true. Like, I love the story of Joseph in the Bible, which was like, he had trouble with his brothers. The brothers put him in a pit. He was like, and after he's in the palace of was he in the Pharaoh's palace?
Pharaoh's palace, yes.
And he has this lady who wants to be with him, and he make the choice, and make the choice, and in the end, it's just amazing. But because every day he make the choice of I'm choosing life. I'm choosing not to be, oh, poor me, my brothers don't like me. And, and he's like, where are you going like that? You are not going anywhere. And you're right. It's like we hear this media, day in, day out, poor Palestinians. And I was thinking, even all the words that we're using are not right. They are not Palestinian. Palestine doesn't exist. I mean, Palestine was like before Israel. It's like we need to be precise with our words. They are Muslim, most of them, and they want to be rid of the Jewish people. I'm sorry to be blunt.
Well, I hope not all of them do. But there are a lot who do.
You're right.
And also the media is complicit. Yes. And I think the media, they use it because they want drama. Yeah. So what's the best drama? That the Israelis are the strong people and the Palestinians are the underdog and have no choice. And so this battle will always continue, but it doesn't have to continue. If you give the Palestinians the idea that they're responsible for their future and that they can make choices that will bring peace, and that they have to educate for peace, and they have to accept the Jewish people as the proprietors of the land. It's
That
our
God
land.
has given them.
Right. God gave the land
you-
to the Jewish people.
Sure. And you're right. Some people they agree with that, and they can see that the land flourished when the Jewish people are here. I heard that 35% of the doctors in Israel are from Palestinians. No, I mean, how do they call them? Arab. How do they call them? Muslim Arabs? I don't know.
And well, it is one thing you can see in this country, that every hospital you go into, there's Arabs and Jews in the same room.
I know.
And a lot of Arab doctors.
Oh, a friend was, when my daughter had trouble with her son, he was saved by an Arab pediatrician.
Right.
And I
right.
was
It's a
like,
beautiful model.
I
And
know.
we can live together.
It's like Christian together, and there was some Jewish people, like midwife, and it's like, and there was all these people together, and we're working for life because he almost
Right.
died. So choice, you're right. Every day we're making choice, and it depends on us, not just of the fate. Fate doesn't exist. We are
Right.
making our history.
Right. Or Rabbi Soloveitchik, who's a great teacher, he said that our goal in this world is to turn fate into destiny. So things that seem to just fall by accident, we can then work with them to weave them into something that becomes a kind of mission.
Your book is written very beautiful for that. It's like
Thank you.
there is thoughts. It's not just stories or a bit of patching. No, because sometimes, yeah, sorry, there is books who are like that. A bit of patching and it's okay. It will be a good book because, and it's like, no, you are giving a depth. You are giving keys for the people to be able to get out of the pain or to transform the pain into a higher level. We spoke a tiny bit about commemoration. Can you give us a bit more again about, remembering? It's written so much in the Bible. Remember.
Right. There's something in the modern world that everything is just what's new, what's happening now. And history is there. There's history of countries, and there's personal history, and there's Jewish history. And the goal in our life is to be able to integrate those histories so that we remember what happened to us, and we use that memory to create a better world and to create a world that's more positive and more healing. And like, for example, on Passover, for the Jewish people have a Seder every year. We're supposed to do the Seder as if it's happening now, as if we're going out of Egypt now, so that all the lessons from the past are integrated and they're not blocked off and they're not, they don't evaporate.
When you say that, it reminds me of something that I was learning, like Egypt in Hebrew is Mitzcharim. Mitzcharim?
Right.
And
Tsar is narrow.
exactly. And it's
Right.
like God, we are in one place of narrowness. I don't know if it's an English name.
I think it is.
Yeah?
Right? Yeah.
And God is bringing us in a wider place, broader
Right.
place.
Right. Right. Well, it's almost like we were talking about suffering and pain, and that it's the process of birth. That in every birth you have that pain, but then there's a tremendous expansion and something new. And so also Mitzrayim, the Jewish people, had to go through the narrow straits of the sea in order to get to continue their journey. And then the waters parted, so there was land there.
So God
They could
claimed
walk
to
across, but God did it. God did it. But somebody had to jump in first.
Yes.
Nachshon, they say, that it wasn't until he jumped in, then God could do his miracles.
I love that.
Right. You need human agency. You can't
Yes.
just sit and wait and
That's
say,
it.
do it for me, God. You have to take some action.
You have some other stories, like somebody was saying, "Hey, after you say that you are going to save me," and the guy died,
Right,
and it's
right.
the
He's
same
like, I
story.
saved you. I sent you a boat. I sent you a plane. You have to get on it.
Yeah. Right. Something else after commemoration, I want to go to celebration.
Oh, okay.
Because this is the end of the book, and it's like, you know, we're on the road, it's difficult, it's painful, but there is celebration at the end.
There's happiness again. Like when Kobe was killed, we thought we will never be happy again. There will never be any happiness. And what we see at the camp, when you have all these children who have suffered, when they're happy, they're actually happier than ordinary children, because it's almost like their repertoire of emotion expands. They've gone down so far that they know what sadness is, they know what pain is. So it's almost like a kite, you know, that you have this anchor that's holding you down so you can go much, much higher up. And the goal is celebration, right? That's our goal in life, is to be able to celebrate, but something real. And people have this idea that happiness and sadness are total opposites. Like you can't be happy if you're sad. But actually, they're twins. They're together. So, like for example, you
can almost swing from one to another.
Right, but I think it's to accept that even in moments of happiness, you may feel some sadness, and to acknowledge that and honor it, instead of saying, no, go away, I can't deal with you. No, okay, you're here and you're part of it, but you're not going to contradict the happiness.
So you do this Camp Kobe, Camp Kobe, and you help many people, a lot of children, particularly. Can you give us a story of like somebody when you could see the pain and you could see more going on to maybe not celebration at the time, but like coming out of...
Well, there was this there was a little girl last summer, and I was talking to her, and she told me she was a twin, and she was about 8, and her sister died of cancer when the sister was 4. And she told me that her sister was very nice to her, and she wasn't that nice. And she said that when she went to the hospital, she brought her sister a present, but her sister had already died. And so I spoke to her about that. And then I said, is there anything you would like to say to your sister? Let's say you could speak to your sister. And she said, yeah, I'm sorry. And then she smiled at me and hugged me and she actually had some candy with her. She gave me candy and she skipped away. So I think just that joining together of somebody really, that she was able to talk about this really intimate moment with me. Because she knew also I tell them my story. And not that, I'm sure it's a story she'll return to. And in fact, the psychologist at the camp told me that she also had spoken to her about it. So it's something she's trying to process. But I think once you can live with the story and tell the story, then the story changes. And then there is this sense of relief and also happiness, because you're not alone in the story.
Yes, you give it to somebody. I've been very touched when, because I'm still learning. I'm like, coming to see what's happening here in the land of Israel, being close to the people, see the pain, see the joy. And I've noticed that when they have a bereavement, and when a funeral, quite often the people when they speak about the person, they give a time of saying, I'm sorry, when they are speaking to the person, they will speak and say, I'm sorry for how I've been with you, or there is something like that. And I was surprised at the beginning, saying, I never heard that in France or in England.
Right, to ask forgiveness for anything you did to hurt the person.
So is it something big for the Jewish people to speak about it?
I think there's the idea that you want to have forgiveness and anything you did to hurt the people. So you want a healing.
I agree, but I've never heard it.
Yeah, it's true. It's not everywhere.
Okay.
But
No,
there is something. Yeah, it's an honesty also.
Is what?
It's an honesty.
Yeah. No, but you're right. Because I mean, sometimes I find here in Israel, the people, they want to be real because life is tough.
Yeah.
And some people, maybe not everybody, but some people, when they are confronted to things, they have to learn more, maybe how to be, or maybe they have also to be sensitive, or how to be with God, like, you know, to have a close, I have to be right with these people, like you have Yom Kippur, and you have to say sorry to the people if you've done something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You know inside of you that if you want God, again, which is normal, if you want God to forgive you, you have to forgive the people. So it's something with very, something that you can see in life here in Israel. And I would say particularly in France, I think we're quite proud, and we won't speak about these things. It will be like hidden, it will be something personal, do you understand? But you will
Yeah. Well, I think Jewish history and also living in Israel, you have a toughness but also a vulnerability. Mm-hmm. And if you connect to that vulnerability, then first of all, you have to cry out to God because there's no one else to cry out to. Mm-hmm. But also there's a real connection with people because you have a community. You have people who are going through the good times and the bad times together. And it's a very dramatic country. I mean, even the word Israel, mm-hmm. is real. We're very real. And there's drama here all the time.
It's true.
Not that we want it. I mean, we are ready to just have peace. We want peace.
Mm-hmm. No, this is interesting. But yeah, I've learned a lot of things in Israel. Now, do you have things that from your personal life, what is the thing that you are giving the most to the people? What is the gift that you are giving to the people the most? Because I know you are generous soul, I will say. Uh-huh. Not just a lady, but because you've been through things, you want to give it to the people. What is the gift that is specific to give to the people?
Oh, that's a beautiful question. What's the gift? First of all, for a long time, I went to comfort people in their houses after somebody died, especially in terms of terrorism. And now, after 15 years of that, I've stopped. But I created a network. So we have people who work for the foundation who are going to visit people. And also we're creating groups. So for example, we have a group starting on Sunday, a therapy group, an art therapy group for bereaved mothers in the Hebron, Kiryat Arba area. Mm-hmm. And we have a new group for widows in Jerusalem. And we have a group for teenagers who are bereaved, a narrative therapy group. So I think my gift is creating these groups and managing them so people can be in a community with other people like them and learn how to grow from grief, not just despite grief.
But and you're right, you need to create this because people have to go through it to be able to speak. I mean, you can't speak to somebody who didn't live through that. Very rarely they won't be able to understand.
Well, there are things you only understand by going through them. And when you have a group, first of all, grief, it's really not a psychological issue. It's, partially, but it's spiritual and it's existential and it's huge. So when you have a bunch of people who are grappling with the same questions, first of all, they legitimize your questions. Like, for example, bereaved mothers. At first, almost every bereaved mother I know says something like, I want to kill myself. Almost every single one. And people don't realize that, but that's a feeling. It doesn't mean most people aren't going to do it. But when you hear somebody else saying, I felt like that too, then it affirms what you're going through, and then in a way you can release it. I think it's also the empathy and the expression when you hear I learned a lot from the other Israeli women in my group, how they process things, where they see God in their life, how they are able to find blessing no matter what. And also a lot of them, they have a long history here. So they're able to see it in a more historical sense. Like, for example, now, I mean, it's terrible what we're going through.
I know.
That, how many, 35 people? 32 people have been killed since
September. I mean, Rosh Hashanah, which was the end of September.
And it's like we have these cycles of where the Palestinians want to murder us. And it keeps repeating.
And young people, 11, 13, 15, I mean, maybe it doesn't mean anything, I don't know.
You mean the murderers?
Yeah, the
murderers are young.
Yeah.
And I feel like they're victims of their own society because they should be training them for peace, and instead they're training them for hate.
It's like two societies totally different. One for death, and one, I mean, I saw some videos, they're like, is like, being so abusing children, little souls, and so they get used to be abused, and they have to repeat what they see in their life, and it's like a cycle, and it's like, okay, there is another way to live.
Right, but my hope is that Palestinian parents will be appalled by this, by what's going on, and instead of saying that they honor terrorists, that they'll say no more. That's my dream.
My dream too. So, Sherri, thank you for coming again and carry on speaking about your book. And the book is The Road to Resilience, wonderful book. I really encourage you to find it. It's on Amazon UK, Amazon like the general one, and it's from chaos to celebration, that we can have tough things happening in our life, and Sherri had, but like going through it and growing from a narrow place to a broader place. And from Sherri and from me, we're just sending you loads of blessing from Zion, and we're saying shalom, shalom to you. Bye.
You've been watching In the Last Days, a TV program with Martin and Natalie Blackham, the program that looks at Israel and the end times with teaching from a Hebraic perspective. If you would like to financially support the program or find out about conferences, meetings, or ministry products, then please contact us with the details on your screen. Visit our easy-to-use website at www.inthelastdays.com and register for our free e-newsletter. Get the latest news from Israel, product information, online video teaching, or watch today's TV program at a time that's convenient to you. Thank you again, friends and partners, for making this program possible.
See you same time, same station for the next program from In the Last Days.